Every single day, whether you realize it or not, your body is fighting a war. It's this invisible battle against microscopic invaders that are trying to get in right now. So we're going to go behind the front lines to figure out, how do we get sick? And more importantly, how do we win this fight for our health?
So, have you ever really stopped to think about it? How do we actually get sick? What is going on inside our bodies when that happens? And, how can we fight back? It's a huge question, so let's try to break it all down.
Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First up, we're going to look at how diseases actually spread. Then, we'll get into how we can fight back. After that, we'll tackle a really important topic, the stigma around HIV. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at the dangers of certain substances.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1, how diseases spread. It's all about meeting these, invisible invaders. Germs might be microscopic, but the way they get from one person to another is actually surprisingly simple.
So it turns out there are basically 4 main highways for germs. They can travel through the air, through water, through our food, and even through insects. Think about it. Things like tuberculosis in the air or cholera in the water, they all use these routes to get to their next destination. And that destination? Well, it's us.
Let's zoom in on the first two, air and water. Just think about it. A single cough from someone who has TB can just fill the air with germs. And that's a huge risk in crowded places, right? And then there's water. If a water supply gets contaminated with something like cholera, it can spread so fast. It's pretty scary, and figuring this out was a massive breakthrough for public health.
And then, of course, there's food. It's another huge pathway. And it can be something so simple, like not washing your hands before you make dinner. That can be enough to transfer germs. And, we can't forget about pests, right? Flies are the worst. They'll land on who knows what and then bring those germs right over your plate.
Okay, so let's say these invaders, these germs, they actually get through. What happens then? Well, let's take a really common example, diarrhea. Now, nobody likes it, for sure. But the real danger isn't what you might think. It's actually a serious side effect. And that danger is dehydration. See, when you're sick like that, your body's just losing water and vital salts way faster than you can put them back in. And it's this massive loss of fluid that can turn a pretty common illness into something really serious.
So how can you tell if someone is dehydrated? Well, there are some pretty clear signs to look for. Things like a really dry mouth, not much or even no urine, sunken eyes, maybe no tears when crying, and even the skin loses its bounce. The good news, though, is that the fix is pretty straightforward. You just have to replace those lost fluids, usually with a special mix of water, sugar, and salt that helps the body absorb everything it needs.
Okay, enough doom and gloom about how germs attack. Let's talk about how we fight back. Because here's the thing, we are not defenseless. We have an entire arsenal of weapons we can use to protect ourselves.
And our defense is kind of like a two-pronged attack, and it's pretty brilliant when you think about it. On one side, you've got your personal defense, the simple stuff we do every day. Building up our body's resistance, washing our hands with soap, covering our mouths when we cough, cooking food all the way through. These are like our personal shields. But then we've got the heavy artillery, science's weapons. I'm talking about things like pasteurization to make our milk safe, vaccines, one of the best inventions ever, to prevent things like measles and polio, powerful antibiotics to wipe out bacterial diseases, and even chemicals to keep insect populations in check. It's this incredible 1-2 punch of personal action and scientific breakthrough.
Okay, now we're going to shift gears a bit. We're going to talk about a health challenge where the fight isn't just against a virus. It's also against, fear and misunderstanding. Let's get into the stigma surrounding HIV. Now, this is a really important distinction to make. HIV, that's the human immunodeficiency virus, is the virus itself. It's the thing that attacks the immune system. AIDS, on the other hand, is the condition, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, that can develop way down the line, but only if the HIV virus is left untreated. So one is the attacker, and the other is what can happen if that attacker is ignored.
And this right here is probably the most important thing to know. Modern medicine has completely changed the game. Today, with the right treatment, people with HIV can control the virus. They can live long, totally normal, healthy lives. The medicine can prevent the virus from ever progressing to AIDS. It's absolutely a manageable condition now.
And that's why this social side of things is so critical. The science is there, but the stigma, the judgment, that can still do so much harm.
I think this quote really says it best. It is important to support people with HIV and not to judge them. You know, that compassion, that support, it's just as vital as any medicine.
Okay, for our last section today, we're going to look inward. We've talked about external invaders, but now let's talk about the internal threats, substances that can affect our bodies and our minds from the inside out.
When you look at it, there's a whole range of substances we come across. It can start with something as simple as caffeinated drinks. You know, your coffee, tea, energy drinks. They give you a little boost, but too much can definitely make you anxious. Then you've got your legal but age-restricted stuff like tobacco and alcohol, which are highly addictive and can really harm your lungs and liver. Even prescription medications, if they're not used correctly, can be addictive. And then, of course, you have illegal substances like ecstasy or heroin, which are just incredibly dangerous and carry a huge risk of addiction.
So, what are we actually talking about when we say addiction? Well, at its core, it's being unable to stop using something. And it's really a two-part problem. There's the physical side, where your body literally craves it. And then there's the psychological part, where your mind craves the feeling that substance gives you. It's a really powerful combination.
So, we've covered a lot of ground, right? From how diseases get around, to how we fight back, to the challenges of stigma and substance use, and it all kind of boils down to this one question. It makes you think, what's one small change you can make today that could lead to a healthier tomorrow? It's something to really consider.